Hello everyone, back tuning in to today's second video. I've already done a video on the homepage looking at weather next week to 10 days and also seeing what's going on in terms of the stratosphere, the Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation and that kind of thing. So check that out if you would like to, it's on the homepage. This is our seasonal interpretation of the long-range ECMWF model. So it's not widely known that the ECMWF, which is a model that we use all the time for our shorter range videos going out to 7 to 10 days. It's not widely known that the ECMWF has a long-range seasonal model, which is very highly regarded by professional meteorologists. The reason it's not widely known is because it's not widely available. Access to this model is extremely restricted, and in fact it's so restricted that I can't show you the charts myself. I've had a look at them. I've been allowed to see them by a very kind person who has let me have a look at them. But I can't show you those charts myself. But what I am allowed to do is interpret the things that I've seen, show you what I've witnessed, and reinterpret those charts in a form that is very basic, but hopefully you'll be able to understand it. So that's what I'm going to do for this update, and we're going to run from January through to March, so through the late winter period. Of course, we had the full winter period last month. You've got to scroll down the page a bit to see what the model was showing when we did last month's update for December to February. Essentially, lots of blocking through the winter period was the signal, and we'll see whether this is set to continue through the late part of the winter and just into the beginning of the spring for this update. Well, very good on with that. Just say about the ads. There's links for articles on the pages. Have a browse widgets and click through the links. If there's any articles that you're interested in, you're going to be helping us to pay for our website, and thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads, most pages which own that content. When you watch them, they close back up again, and it does help to pay for gas. Well, it's and finally, just say about Christmas shop. It's still open. You've still got time to get Christmas presents out to you from Amazon. So just click the green button that says Christmas shop. It takes you to our Christmas shop page. From there, you click through the Amazon banners. And because you've gone from GazWeathers to Amazon, we get a revenue fee on the things that you are buying, and a big thank you to everybody for doing that. Been a huge success again this season. And as I say, you've still got time to get those Christmas presents to you. Don't leave it much longer, though. Time is getting on. But if you've got any shopping to do, then do it at Amazon via GazWeathers. A big thanks to everybody for doing that. Right, getting on with the update then, and I'm just on the ECMWF website right now. This is it, and this is where you go if you want to have a look at the shorter range charts, and you find the link to the ECMWF website on the links page. But there's no point going here if you want to see the long-range model, because you won't be able to access it. The way you get access to this is either being a professional meteorologist or paying a very large amount of money to access it. So you won't be able to see these charts for yourself, unfortunately. However, as I said, I have done an interpretation. So this is how things were looking when we did last month's update. This is for December to February. This means sea level pressure anomaly for the winter of 2016-2017, and obviously it's going for quite a lot of high pressure, quite a lot of blocking to be to the north, low pressure through the Atlantic and going through the Mediterranean, implying that there's a southerly tracking jet stream, and this blocking you would have thought would be giving an increased chance of colder temperatures moving in from the east. Now, the temperature signal wasn't anything to get excited about. Despite what looks like a pretty decent level of blocking this winter, the temperature signal wasn't much to get excited about, and that is very often what you find with these long-range season models. They do tend to struggle to forecast cold conditions, but we said that based on the amount of blocking that we have there, it is likely to be a colder winter. Well, let's go on and see what the model is predicting now for the latter part of the winter. So this is my interpretation of the 500 millibar height anomaly going from January to March 2017. As you know, with heights, red is extrapolated to high pressure, and blue, there isn't any blue on this chart, but blue would be extrapolating to low pressure. So we see a signal still there for a lot of blocking to be to the north, a lot of high pressure in terms of the 500 millibar height sitting to the northern part of Europe, around Greenland, going through to the north of Scandinavia, and down into northern and northwestern parts of Russia. And these heights do extend a little bit further down towards Scandinavia and northern parts of the UK as well. Then we've got much weaker pressure through here, and then nothing really showing up down here. This is all just average pressure, but you would have thought with so much in terms of above average heights to the north, you would have to get a corresponding trough of below average heights somewhere. So where the model is showing average heights, which is sort of France, Spain, Portugal, into the Med, possibly around Italy, I would have thought there's likely to be a trough of low pressure actually there through this latter part of the winter. So you'd think there's low pressure there, high pressure up here and up here. And this still looks like a cold signal to me, with easterly winds perhaps, likely maybe northeasterly winds as well going down into there. Southeastern Europe remains a bit of a puzzle. Quite what wind do you get there down through the Balkans, and then going further southeast towards parts of Greece, then over towards Turkey and Middle East. Quite what kind of winter you're going to get there, it is quite uncertain. The model is placing you under above average heights, which in this sort of scenario is probably going to be quite mild. But actually you're having a really cold start to winter, with lots of northerly shots and cold air coming out of Russia. So remains a bit of a puzzle for the southeast of Europe, but I think overall this is signalling southern and western parts of Europe, where we've got this area of average heights, to actually be quite unsettled, and the driest conditions and also the coldest conditions will be likely in the north, except over Scandinavia, and there, because you're under a ridge of high pressure, the cold air is actually pushed out further into southern, central, western parts of Europe. This perhaps makes things a little bit more easier to see. This has been mean sea level pressure anomaly going from January through to March 2017. And again, it's still looking like it's a cold signal. So we've got these yellow colours here, orange colours around Greenland, also around Iceland as well, and extending into Scandinavia. And we still have that signal that we had in the last update with the mean sea level pressure anomaly for the jet stream going on a southerly track. So we've got low pressure going through the Atlantic and then down in towards the Mediterranean. This still with a below average mean sea level pressure anomaly there. So this still looks like we've got the idea that the jet stream is on a southerly track, doing something like that, with all of the high pressure that we've got going on up here. You would expect cold air to be pushed out through the blocking into Europe, either via the east or possibly even at times from the north. So this is still looking like a cold signal for the late winter. Remember, this isn't covering December to February. This is covering January through to March. It still looks like, in terms of the heights and meter pressure anomaly, it should be a colder than average winter for many central western parts of Europe, also the northeast. However, this is a temperature anomaly, and for this level of blocking that the model is signalling in terms of its mean sea level pressure anomaly and its height anomaly, the temperatures are actually quite disappointing. So we've got above average temperatures quite obviously up to the north. It's warm here, and that's where we've got all of the high pressure, of course, so that's a reason that the anomaly is fairly high, and that extends into Scandinavia as well, which makes sense, because if you're under an area of high pressure across Scandinavia, you'll be pushing the cold air out into the south of that high pressure. So for this area, that does make sense that it will probably come out with a milder than average temperature deviation. If you want cold air over Scandinavia, I know you have people watching in Scandinavia. If you have cold air, if you want cold air for Scandinavia, what you really need is either a ridge to be extending through the Atlantic like that and going up towards Greenland, and then a deep trough just here and here, which pushes the cold air out of the Arctic into Scandinavia. That's one possible route. The other route can often be with a zonal westerly, but the jet stream on a southerly track. So if you've got a strong westerly jet stream with the jet stream going somewhere like there, and low pressure coming through here, what will tend to happen is that you'll bring down a lot of cold air into Scandinavia via that sort of route as well. So they're the two scenarios that are good for Scandinavia to get lots of cold and snow. This scenario, which is pretty dry, and for Scandinavia not overly cold with all this high pressure up here, isn't very good. So you'd expect it to be milder than average, really, for Scandinavia and for Greenland and for the polar region generally. However, you would expect much of this area to be significantly colder than the model is showing. So it's hard to understand quite why it's doing that, other than to say that it's a 3-monthly anomaly, so it could be that it's missing a particularly cold episode, saying if February and March are relatively mild, but January is very cold, or you could have another month but like that, so you have January that's mild and March is mild, but February is very cold. As the 3-monthly anomaly, it wouldn't be anything to get excited about. That's one possibility. The other possibility, of course, that the model just overdoes the temperatures, and I think a lot of these long-range seasonal models do tend to overcook temperatures a little bit. So this area really where it's all sort of white colour, which is average temperature anomalies, I think expect that to be quite a bit colder than that is showing. And then down into the Mediterranean, the signal is generally above average, which I'm not sure about really, because it implies, certainly mean sea level pressure anomaly implies that the jet stream is on a southerly track. So to me, you will think that's quite cool and wet down through the Mediterranean. So, not sure about the temperatures, but I still think in terms of the heights of mean sea level pressure, it is indicating a colder than average winter. And then finally, we come to precipitation anomalies, which always seem to be very weak on these long-range models. But the basic idea is sort of drier than average to the north and northwest of the UK and Scandinavia. So this is all tying in with the idea that you would have high pressure up here and probably around here as well. And I would have thought going up to there and possibly extending through to there, so quite a bit of high pressure up there. And then for Eastern and Southern Europe, and then through the Mediterranean, it's a bit of a wetter than average signal, where again you've probably got the jet stream on that southerly track going through that sort of area. Now, the puzzle still remains southeastern Europe, because the height anomaly implied above average heights actually down in the southeast of Europe here, but the precipitation anomaly is sort of a little bit above average with the rainfall. So that doesn't tie in with having above average heights down there. So southeastern Europe, it really is a bit of a mystery what's going on there. But otherwise, I think generally most northern, central and western parts of Europe, so much of this area just here, I would have thought is likely to be dry, fairly dry through here, up to there, and then probably around there as well. And then this area down here, I would have thought is likely to be wet, with that southerly tracking jet stream going through the Mediterranean. So, as always, the temperature and precipitation anomaly is not really tying in all that well with the heights and the pressure, but it is the heights and the mean sea level pressure that I tend to concentrate on most with these long-range models. It's not just the E70F, it's the CFS and the UK Met Office model. Many of these models, I sort of regard the pressure and heights as more important than the temperature and precipitation anomalies, which are subject to very big changes within a short time frame. So in terms of the pressure and the heights, I think it does still imply a risk of northern blocking. It implies therefore a risk of a colder winter or late winter, as this is January to March, implies a risk of a colder late winter for northwestern, central, possibly southern and southeastern parts of Europe, Eastern Europe as well. For Scandinavia, with the ridge of high pressure very close by, not all that cold there, a lot of dry weather, and then the Med probably fairly wet signal down there, otherwise a fairly dry signal but cold for much of Europe. Remember, all these long-range models are highly experimental, and not to be relied upon. The ECWF is regarded as the best, really, that there is, but even that is subject to change, and it's just really a heads up what Molly's showing, a bit of fun, and to let you know the broad thrust of where the model is going through the late winter, but it is subject to changes, as are all long-range seasonal models and forecasts. Right, check out that video that's on the homepage. Not sure if there's going to be a video coming up later, but keep an eye on my Twitter feed to see whether there might be. But 15 minutes, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.